What's up, everybody? It's me, Anthony, and it's the time of the week again. It's Anthony's NFL Picks. Week 2. We are now in the second week of the new 2025-2026 NFL season, and last week was a really good week to start things off, for me at least, because first of all, two of things. First and foremost, my Commanders got a win over those stinky Giants 21-6, and to top it all off, the second thing off is I started the best I've ever done before with my record all together in seasons. I'm starting the season off 14-2 of last week's picks. The picks that I got wrong were the Chiefs-Chargers game, which I was correct about with the Chiefs losing that game. The score was 27-21. I said that. However, the score was reversed. The Chargers beat the Chiefs 27-21. And I also, kind of messed up with the Colts-Dolphins because the Colts always beat the Dolphins, though. But I thought the Dolphins were going to win that game, so I got that wrong, too. But enough with all the intro and enough with all that stuff. Let's get started. But before we start, please do these things for me. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bells to get updated on my newest content. Let's get things started and starting things off. And if you're my Packer fans over there, Jay Schneider, if you're hearing this right now, we got a matchup for Thursday Night Football, kicking it off between my 1-0 Washington Commanders and the 3-0 and the 1-0 Green Bay Packers. The Commanders, my Commanders, baby. We are here after beating those Giants to start the new season off. Hopefully, Jaden Daniels will keep playing very well. However, they're playing against the Packers, who beat the Lions in Lambeau 27-13. My upset of the week was correct about that. I'm going to go with the Packers. The Packers are a really good team. Micah Parsons is doing really good in Green Bay, and it's showing. I think the Packers will go to the Super Bowl, possibly, because they look like a really good team right now. They beat the Lions, so I think they're going to beat the Commanders, unfortunately. My team has no chance standing with Jordan Love, having all those weapons around him, so I think it's going to be Green Bay on this one. Packers will beat the Commanders, unfortunately, 35-23. The Packers will start off 2-0. My Commanders will drop to be 1-1. We're moving on with our next games. And coming up with our next games, here are the 1 o'clock games for Sunday. We have an NFC East matchup between the 0-1 Giants and the 0-1 Cowboys. Both teams are looking for their first wins of the season. The Giants, they're here after losing to my Commanders, baby. Woohoo! 21-6. And the Giants had no offensive line also on Sunday, which kind of cost them to lose. And to top things all off, Russell Wilson played really bad, and we don't know if he's going to be starting this week. The Cowboys, on the other hand, they're here after losing to the Eagles on opening day 24-20, and that whole weather delay game really screwed them over. And they were winning at some points because the Eagles have no defense, however. But to be honest, they're in AT&T Stadium, Dallas. I'm going to go with the Cowboys on this one. I think the Cowboys are a better team than the Giants. The Giants are going to be in a really weird rebuilding phase, so I'm going to go with them. Cowboys will beat the Giants 20-13. The Cowboys will start off 1-1. The Giants will be 0-2. We're moving on with our next game. Coming up at our next game, we got the 0-1 Seahawks and the 1-0 Steelers. The Seahawks, they're here after losing to the 49ers in that NFC West clash. Sam Darnold's debut as a Seahawk started off strong. They were winning at some points because the 49ers were banged up with injuries. However, they didn't really hold on to that lead, losing 17-13. They're going to be in Pittsburgh against the Steelers, who completely got revenge on the Jets. The Jets were coming close to beating the Steelers, but again, the Jets always jet because of the Jets. The Aaron Rodgers got his revenge against his former team, who cut them back in February of this year. So I'm going to go with the Steelers. The Steelers are a really good team. They put up a great fight against the Jets, beating them 34-32 with the last-second kick by Chris Boswell on the Steelers. So it just makes sense for me to go with the Steelers on this one. The Seahawks, I don't know how they're going to play out, but my gut is saying Pittsburgh. Steelers will beat the Seahawks 31-21. The Steelers will start off 2-0. The Seahawks will be 0-2. We're moving on to their next game. Coming up at our next game, we got the 1-0 Rams and the 0-1 Titans. Rams, they're here after winning. They're beating the Texans in that very low-sided game, 14-9, mainly because the Texans are banged up with injuries. But the Rams are a really good team, and Matthew Stafford broke a record this weekend, throwing for a lot of yards, which is really good for the Rams. I think they're going to win the division. I don't think the Niners are going to now because, the 49ers are banged up with injuries, but we'll get to them very soon. The Titans, they're here after losing to Denver 20-12. They put up a good fight, I have to admit, against the Broncos. Cam Ward is, still very young. He just got drafted in the first round, so we got to find out how he's going to turn out. And this is going to take place in Tennessee, but I'm going to still go with the Rams either way. Rams will beat the Titans 30-17. The Rams will remain 2-0 undefeated. The Titans will drop to be 0-2. We're moving on with the next game. Coming up at our next game, we got an AFC East matchup between the 0-1 Patriots and the 0-1 Dolphins. Both teams, they're coming back from losses. The Patriots, they're here after losing to the Raiders. They played really well, the Patriots, at first. Mike Vrabel, his debut, coaching as an NFL now for the Patriots, used to coach the Titans back then, let them go in 2023 or 2024 season. Now they're going to be in Miami against the Dolphins, who completely imploded, losing to Danny Derps and the Colts 33-8. Tua was terrible on Sunday. He was awful. But to be honest, I think the Dolphins need to win this game, because if they don't, then that's going to be a huge issue. I think if they keep playing like this, I think Mike McDaniel will get fired this season possibly, because the Dolphins, they're always banged up with injuries. Tua is just not a great quarterback anymore, I don't think. Tua's just not the same like he was in 2023. But I'm going to go with the Dolphins, but it was a really hard game, though. It's in Miami, so my gut is saying Miami. My other gut's saying the Patriots, but I'm going to go with Miami on this one. The Dolphins will beat the Patriots 27-20. The Dolphins will go on to be 1-1. The Patriots will be 0-2. We're moving on with the next game. Coming up at our next game, we got the 1-0 Jaguars and the 1-0 Bengals. Jaguars are here after completely embarrassing the Panthers, losing to them 26-10, and they had a weather delay that game, which was perfect for Jacksonville, who did very well. And I'm excited for that Jaguars team with Travis Hunter now on there. Travis Etienne did very well. The new tight end now, Brenton Strange, did very well. Trevor Lawrence is a really good quarterback all of a sudden. They were playing the Panthers, but they're playing the Bengals now, who did very good against the Browns. Kind of, not the greatest. They won by a point, 17-16. The Bengals still have no defense, however. But I still think the Bengals can win because they're at home. They have a home field advantage. And I think they're going to be perfectly fine, because the Jaguars, they're getting better, though. But I don't know if they're going to beat Cincinnati, because Cincinnati's a good team if they're healthy and if they play defense, because they don't have any defensive players anymore. Trey Hendrick's still on the team, though, but he isn't, he's only one person. So I'm going to go with the Bengals on this one, but it's be a good game, though. Bengals will beat the Jaguars 34-28. The Bengals will start off 2-0. The Jaguars will be 1-1. We're moving on with the next game. Coming up at our next game, we got the 1-0 Niners and the 0-1 Saints. 49ers, they're here after winning against the Seahawks last Sunday, beating them 17-13. However, in the midst of it, the 49ers are banged up again with more injuries. Brock Purdy is questionable now, Juan Jennings is questionable now, and George Kittle is out until the 12th of October with a hamstring injury that he suffered against the Seahawks week 1. He had to exit the game early, and that's why they were kind of losing a little bit, but they came back and won somehow. And also another news this morning, Jake Moody was cut by the 49ers. He was waived by them because he missed like 2 kicks on Sunday against Seattle, so they need a better kicker. Jake Moody was terrible. But to be honest, I'm going to go with the Niners because the Saints are in a very weird rebuilding phase. However, they played very close against Arizona, and it's in New Orleans. So I'm going to go with the Niners either way, despite, the whole injury pile list that's going on back in San Francisco. This is just last year's relapse, so I'm going to just go with the Niners either way. 49ers will beat the Saints 19-10. 49ers will be 2-0. The Saints will be 1-1. We're moving on with the next game. Coming up at our next game, we got an AFC North matchup between, they're both 0-1, the 0-1 Browns and the 0-1 Ravens. Both teams are coming back from losses. The Browns are here after losing that close game by 1 point against Cincinnati, 17-16. The Browns were playing very well. Joe Flacco was, back to his 2023 selves when they led the Browns to the playoffs. But they played very close against Cincinnati, mainly because they don't have defense. And to top things off, too, the Ravens are here after blowing that game against Buffalo on Sunday night, 40-25, winning. I went to bed. And then the Bills came back all of a sudden and beat them 41-40, which was amazing. I did not realize that. And I'm like, no way. So it was a crazy thing for me to see that. And I chose the Bills, and I thought that I was wrong with that pick. And the Bills just came back out of nowhere. So I'm going to go with Baltimore because the Ravens are pretty mad over this, and they're in Baltimore, so it's easy. And the Browns, they're not really that great of a team, and I think they're going to be really rebuilding. Going to see who's going to be starting for the Browns in the future. Could it be Dylan Gabriel? Will it remain Joe Flacco? I don't know. Or Shador? Because Joe Flacco is like 40 now. He's going to be 41 in January. So I'm going to go with the Ravens on this one. Ravens will beat the Browns 30-14. Ravens will go on to be 1-1. The Browns will be 0-2. We're moving on with the next game. Coming up at our next game, we got another division battle. This time, it's an NFC North matchup. They're both winless, the 0-1 Bears and the 0-1 Lions. The Bears are here after blowing that game against the Vikings yesterday. They were winning 17-6, and then they ended up losing the game 27-24. J.J. McCarthy looked like Christian Ponder at first, but now we're going to get to them later. But the Bears were playing very strong. They were really, winning the first half of the game, and then all of a sudden they just fell apart. However, they're going to be away in Detroit against the Lions, who lost to the Packers, and Dan Campbell really struggles without his coordinators around him, and it showed against the Packers. But again, the Packers are a great team now. I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl this season, I think. Green Bay is really good, but Detroit can also compete too. We have to find out and see, but I'm going to have to go with the Lions on this one. The Lions need to rebound. They need to regroup, so I'm going to have to go with them on this one. Lions will beat the Bears 29-21. The Lions will go on to be 1-1. The Bears will be 0-2. We're moving on with our next games, and our next games are the 4 o'clock games for Sunday. We start things off with the Battle of the Horses. We got the 1-0 Broncos and the 1-0 Colts. Broncos, they're here after winning against the Titans, playing a very weird, okay game, 20-12. Bo Nix is really good still. We got to see how he does. However, they're going to Indianapolis against the Colts, with Daniel Jones starting, who ended up beating Miami 33-8. They upset the Dolphins, and Tua was just awful that game. And Daniel Jones looked like modern-day Peyton Manning against the Dolphins last week, and that is crazy to say that. I don't know what to say or what to do, but to be honest, I'm going to have to go with the Broncos on this one because the Broncos are a really good team still. Bo Nix is a great quarterback. However, they lost Javonte Williams, who went to Dallas. But I still think the Broncos are a good team. I think they're going to beat they're going to beat the Colts in a close game, though. I think the Colts are going to play up a good fight. I think it's the ghost of Jim Irsay blessing them. Who knows? But I'm going to go with the Broncos on this one. Broncos will defeat the Colts 28-23. Broncos will be 2-0. The Colts will be 1-1. We're moving on with our next game. Coming up at our next game, we got the 0-1 Panthers and the 1-0 Cardinals. Panthers are here after a completely imploding opener against the Jaguars, 26-10. Bryce Young threw for 2 interceptions. And he's going back to his old self this first 2 weeks back last season where he was awful. He did really bad, and it didn't cost him a lot. That's not good against the Jaguars with Travis Hunter now on the team and Trevor Lawrence playing better. However, they're going to Arizona against the Cardinals, who beat the Saints, because the Cardinals have a very easy schedule. I think the Cardinals could possibly make a playoff push. It depends. But I'm going to go with Arizona, though. I think Arizona is going to remain undefeated. I think they're going to beat the Panthers, and I think they're going to be a really good team still. Kyler Murray's really good. Marvin Harrison Jr., they got Max Melton. They have Trey McBride. They got James Conner. So I think Arizona's going to win this game. And again, this is the same team that beat them in overtime, which cost the Cardinals to be eliminated last season. The Panthers actually beat them in overtime in December. So I think this is a revenge game. I think the Cardinals are going to win this one. Cardinals will defeat the Panthers 33-22. Cardinals will remain 2-0. The Panthers will go 0-2. We're moving on with our next game. And coming up at our next game, we got a really good matchup. It's the Super Bowl 59 rematch of last season's Super Bowl between the 1-0 Eagles and the 0-1 Chiefs. The Eagles are here after beating the Cowboys on their opener 24-20. They look like a better team. However, when I was watching the game on Thursday night, they were not playing defense at all because, Jalen Carter got ejected for, spitting on Dak Prescott on the opening drive, the first drive of the new season to start things off, which is not great for for Philadelphia, because they didn't really have anybody around them. And Nakobe Dean on the Eagles, however, is still out with an injury. But, they're taking on Kansas City, who ended up losing to the Chargers 27-21. The Chiefs look washed up. I think Kelsey's going to retire at the end of the season. He's going to be 36 next month. I think it's going to be Philadelphia. But it's in Kansas City, though. But I'm going to go with Philadelphia. The Chiefs are going to really be struggling this year. The Super Bowl hangover. They were about to get a three-peat, But I still think the Chiefs are going to make the Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong. They may off to a rough start, but I know it's going to happen. They're going to find some magic. They're going to go back to the Super Bowl and possibly win it. I just don't know. I think the NFL is scripted, but you think, you believe. I don't know. But I'm going to go Philadelphia on this one, though. The Eagles will defeat Kansas City. Close game, 36-34. The Eagles will go on to be 2-0. The Chiefs will be 0-2, surprisingly. Who knows? But we're moving on with our next games. And coming up with our next game, here are the primetime games for Sunday and Monday night. And we don't have one Monday night football game this week. We have two of them. But starting things off for Sunday night football, we got a battle between the second-year quarterbacks. We got the 0-1 Falcons and the 1-0 Vikings. The Falcons are here after losing that upsetting game, getting embarrassed by Tampa Bay, choking that game at the last second, 23-20, after Koo missed that last second kick, causing them to lose the game, which was good for me because I chose the Buccaneers over the Falcons, because the Falcons always beat the Buccaneers, though. On the other hand, the Buccaneers are a better team, though. But I think they're going to lose against Minnesota. The Vikings, they're here after beating the Bears, struggling at first yesterday. J.J. McCarthy looked like Christian Ponder. And I know that's kind of going a little too far. I should go a little bit easy on the guy. But I think the Vikings are a good team. Kevin O'Connell is a phenomenal coach. I think they can go far. So I'm going to go with Minnesota on this one. They're in Minnesota to open things off because they were in Chicago yesterday where they defeated the Bears. So I'm going to go with them over them. The Vikings will defeat the Falcons 26-13. The Vikings will go on to be 2-0. The Falcons will go on to be 0-2. We're moving on to their next game. And now for Monday night games. We got two of them. Our first game is going to be a really good game. We got the 1-0 Buccaneers and the 0-1 Texans. The Buccaneers are here after that close win against Atlanta, missing that kick for Atlanta, causing them to lose their first game, and Tampa Bay to win their first one, 23-20. Emeka Ibuka from Ohio State, aka my favorite team for college, was really good against the Falcons as opening career start as a Buccaneer. So I think the Buccaneers are going to lose this game, however, because the Texans, they have a lot of injuries still. Tank Dell is still hurt. Joe Mixon is out, so we don't know what's going to happen. But I still think the Buccaneers could put up a fight, but I think at the very end of the day, I think the Texans are a better team. Texans will beat the Buccaneers 31-24. Texans will go 1-1. The Buccaneers will also be 1-1. We're moving on with our next game. And last but not least for this week, for Monday Night Football, it's an AFC West showdown between the 1-0 Chargers and the 1-0 Raiders. The Chargers are here after upsetting Kansas City in Brazil 27-21. The Chargers played very good. Justin Herbert looked amazing out there. And Najee Harris was there. You got Glad McConkey, Amari Hampton, the rookie. He looked really good. However, they're going to Vegas against the Raiders, who beat the Patriots. However, Brock Bowers is questionable. But Brock Bowers is an amazing tight end, to be honest, in my opinion. Brock Bowers is really good. Geno Smith looked really good as well. Ashton Jeanty did very well. So I think it's going to be a really good game, though. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the Chargers. The Chargers are a better team. I think they're more experienced. The Raiders, they could be good. You got to see how Ashton Jeanty does. But I'm going to go with the Chargers on this one. Chargers will defeat the Raiders 34-26. The Chargers will go on to be 2-0. The Raiders will be 1-1. And that is it for this week, everybody. These are all my NFL picks for week 2 of the National Football League. So tune in for next week. Don't miss out for next week for Anthony's NFL picks week 3, which will be premiering next Tuesday, September 16th. This is Anthony signing off, and have a great week.